All right, good morning, everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss with the Fantasy Sports Boss podcast. If you're new to the channel, of course, hit that subscribe button. Week 6, pretty much in the books. We have the Jets-Bills game to wrap things up tonight. Whatever you need to hopefully get yourself over the top this week to win your league. I hope you get it, but certainly a lot of action that took place yesterday that I'm going to go through now, sort of like the ultimate wrap-up of all the games. And then we're going to start looking ahead toward the next week. So, like I said, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It was a very busy day yesterday. Injuries galore. Aiden Hutchinson, that's a real shame too, because anybody who's just a football fan had to really be sick over what happened with Aiden Hutchinson breaking his leg. And this is and in a game that was a blowout at that point. Not that I'm faulting Dan Campbell, but this is a Super Bowl caliber team, and to have that happen was just devastating for sure. So, hearts out to Aiden Hutchinson, who seems like a really good guy too. But let's get through the games here right now. Green Bay Packers, they're now 4-2, and the offense is really starting to get going now with Jordan Love, 34-13 over the Cardinals. This had the highest over-under of the week. So we knew there was going to be a plethora of points, and Jordan Love came out on top in a big way here. He threw 4 touchdown passes, 258 yards altogether, ran for 13 yards. So Jordan Love is completely locked in right now. You know, he had the injury. He's come back. He's looked really good. Remember, it was him, Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, and Kyler Murray. It's one of those 3 I told you to draft. So hopefully you ended up with one of them, because all 3 guys are paying off well. Although Kyler Murray, it wasn't the greatest game for him. He only threw for 214 yards, 1 touchdown in this one, and no interceptions, which was good. And Murray only ran for 14 yards. So the Packers defense, which has been quite underrated. You know, they've been overshadowed by the offense, but this Packers defense is really good. And for the Cardinals, when they fall behind early and they got to play catch-up mode, that's when things start to go off the rails. They need to remain balanced. James Conner gave them absolutely nothing in this one, 24 yards on the ground. He caught 4 passes for 22 to somewhat salvage his day in PPR, but just not a good thing there. And if you had Marvin Harrison Jr., there was a number of players that went out very early this week, Dallas Goedert in Philly, Marvin Harrison Jr. here. Harrison didn't even catch a pass before he goes out with a concussion, so now he's got to go through the protocol, and it's going to be iffy for him to make it back quickly. Trey McBride led the way, and this was obvious. Once Marvin Harrison went out, Trey McBride took over. He had 8 catches for 96 yards. I think they should use him more. Like, Trey McBride was really underutilized coming into this game, but he showed out well in this one. And it was a really, really impressive outing for one of the best pass-catching tight ends in football. Josh Jacobs, 18 carries for 62 yards. Listen, Emmanuel Wilson continues to play better. He had 7 carries for 54 yards. Not worried about Josh Jacobs, but 3 catches for 28 yards. He's not exactly piling up the touchdowns right now. And this Packers offense, when they get near the red zone, they're throwing it. So this is great if you're a Jordan Love owner, not so much if you're a Josh Jacobs owner. Christian Watson came back. He caught 3 balls for 68 yards and a score. Romeo Doubs, 3 for 49 and 2 scores, himself coming back from a disciplinary matter. Jaden Reed, 6 for 28 and a score. So Jaden Reed continues to lead this team overall. He's been one of the best values this season in fantasy football, talking about Jaden Reed, and he just jives perfectly with his quarterback there. All right, Indianapolis Colts win a late one, 20-17 over the Tennessee Titans. Are now 3-3, and I told you once we got word Joe Flacco was starting, I said get all of your Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, and Michael Pittman came back. So much for that report that he was going to miss multiple weeks. It's just another example of the ridiculous reporting around injuries this year, low-lighted by the whole Christian McCaffrey thing. So Joe Flacco got the job done. He threw another 2 touchdown passes, and you have to start to wonder now. I know Anthony Richardson is the future, but he's been playing so poorly. Do they keep going with Joe Flacco? I don't think they will, but he was really good in this one. And Josh Downs is his number 1 target. 3rd big game in a row, 7 for 66 in a score. Even if Richardson were playing, I still would play Josh Downs. He's just way too hot right now. Michael Pittman sort of becoming touchdown dependent, 3 for 35 in a score. He has scored back-to-back games, but It's Josh Downs who's the number one preferred option of Joe Flacco. DeAndre Hopkins went 4 for 54 to lead the Titans. And, of course, we all heard Calvin Ridley, who did not catch a single, managed to go 0 for 8 on 8 targets, and he went crazy meeting with the media after the game. He's now a drop candidate. Like, I think you could safely drop Calvin Ridley. Tony Pollard, 17 for 93 and a touchdown for Tennessee. So that was the highlight there. He caught 3 passes for -5 yards. So, it's Pollard's getting the job done on a per-touch basis, nothing more, nothing less, all right? Houston Texans 41-21 over the New England Patriots, the first career start for Drake May, and honestly, it wasn't bad. He threw for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he was picked off twice, so the interceptions we understand, but he ran for 38 yards on 5 carries, so this is something that is probably going to get drowned out by the latest gem from Jaden Daniels and both Caleb Williams. Drake May ran the ball well, and he threw three touchdowns. So, listen, Drake May should be picked up. Now, this is still a miserable offense, right? I mean, they're doing nothing on the ground. Antonio Gibson was 13 for 19 as Ramondre Stevenson didn't play. Demario Douglas went 6 for 92 in his score. So if you're and Hunter Henry 3 for 41 in his score. So if you're looking for somebody, if you're desperate, Douglas could be worth an ad this week. For the Texans, no Nico Collins, but it didn't matter. C.J. Stroud played pitch and catch all day, 192 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Stephon Diggs, 6 for 77 in the score. Tank Dell, now fully unleashed with no Nico Collins, 7 for 57 and a score. So this is going to be a big stretch now for Tank Dell going forward. Joe Mixon returned, ran for 100 yards like he did in the opener, 13 for 102 and a touchdown on the ground. And he added another touchdown in the passing game. He caught 2 balls for 30 yards. So Mixon is back to being the bell cow option here at running back for the Texans. Tampa Bay, 51-27 over the Saints. And even if you started Tampa's defense knowing that Spencer Rattler was starting, that didn't work out. All right. Now, I posted a video earlier in the day. Bucky Irving was getting virtually no work. And, it was really upstaged by Sean Tucker, who had a nice game. But Irving got going later on and he scored a touchdown. But this offense is just ridiculous right now. Baker Mayfield, 4 touchdown passes. Now, he's picked off 3 times, right? So -6 there. It was a little bit of a mess, but he threw for 325 and 4 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield is absolutely killing it right now, and I believe he's QB1 or 2 in fantasy, which is just insane. And here's the thing. If you want a glowing example of just how inept the Cleveland Brown organization is, all you have to do is look at how good Baker Mayfield is playing and look at the shit show that is Deshaun Watson. I mean, it is absurd. This might be the worst contract I have ever seen in professional sports. The guy is playing like absolute garbage, and Baker Mayfield is playing like an MVP. All right. Speaking of Tucker, 14 for 136 and a touchdown. Like, wow. So here's the thing. The 2 backup running backs in Tampa are better than the starter, Rachaad White, at least running the ball. Bucky Irving. So Tucker averaged 9.7. Bucky Irvin went 14 for 81 in a score. He averaged 5.8. Tucker caught 3 passes for 56 yards and another score. Bucky Irving, 2 for 24. So both of these guys are killing it. I don't want to see Rachaad White get another carry ever again. So, it's just ridiculous. And Chris Godwin moving back to the slot. Unstoppable. 11 for 125, 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans did his typical Mike Evans thing. 2 monster games in a row, so it stood to reason he was going to have the vanishing game, and he did. 2 for 34. He got banged up a little bit, played through it, but there's no in-between with Mike Evans. Meanwhile, Chris Godwin, right now on the season, he's pushing up as a wide receiver. Well, he's got 5 touchdowns right now, 511 yards altogether. You talk about one of the best investments in fantasy this year, Chris Godwin has been it. This is the Chris Godwin of the Tom Brady era with more touchdowns. And it's not really hurting Mike Evans. Mike Evans is not having a bad season. He's doing his usual thing. He just takes his, couple of games off. Chris Olave left early with a concussion. Like, what more could you say about how shitty Chris Olave has been for his fantasy owners? Like, I was a sucker for his ability. It's just bad. Alvin Kamara, they're stacking the box now against Alvin Kamara. 13 for 40 on the ground. He had a touchdown, luckily. But it's just, he caught 5 passes for 24 yards, but it was ugly. And with Spencer Rattler at quarterback the next couple of weeks, they're going to continue to stack the box against Alvin Kamara. That's what you would expect them to do. Philadelphia Eagles 20-16 over the Browns. The Browns are 1-5. Deshaun Watson is still settling sexual harassment cases, and he's not winning any games, and he's playing horribly. And I've said this multiple times. You have to now wonder how much the excellence of DeAndre Hopkins lifted up Deshaun Watson in Houston. I'm not even going to go in on anything of the Browns. The Browns are completely useless in fantasy. Bench Amari Cooper. Bench Nick Chubb when he comes back. Bench everybody. Don't play anyone on Cleveland. They can't get out of their own way. It has been a season of nothing but of a disgrace for this team. Now, the Eagles had a nice bounce back for Jalen Hurts, 264, 2 touchdowns. He did not throw an interception, ran for 33. This is the Jalen Hurts that you pay top dollar for in fantasy. All right? A.J. Brown, 6 for 116 and a score. Devontae Smith, 3 for 64 and a score. So, listen, the hierarchy is reestablished. Dallas Goedert got hurt, injured early in this game. Grant Calcaterra went 4 for 67 in his place. But it's A.J. Brown at the top. Devontae Smith gets what's left over. He's a low-end wide receiver too, Devontae Smith. Saquon Barkley, he had a tough game. 18 of 47. He did virtually nothing in this one. 2 for 7 in the passing game. But you're not going to hold it against Barkley. Like, he's having a really good season. It just didn't go his way here. Baltimore, 30-23 over Washington. So against one of the best teams in the NFL, the Commanders hung tough throughout this game. Another excellent game for Jaden Daniels, who were running out of superlatives there for him. He threw for 269. 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions. He ran for 24 fantasy points. Like, he is a top 5-6 starter, no questions asked. Lamar Jackson, 323, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he ran for 40 yards. So, a little light on the touchdowns, but Jackson is playing once again at an MVP level. Also playing like an MVP, Derrick Henry, 132 on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Listen, the guy is showing no signs of slowing down. And remember, I hope that you took my advice and you bet Henry to lead the NFL in touchdowns, because he's going to do it. He's got 2 touchdowns right now. He's going to lead in touchdowns. I don't think there's any question. He is having a ridiculous season. Zay Flowers, 9 for 132. He's having an incredible season. Mark Andrews, we had a Mark Andrews sighting. 3 for 66 and a score. This team is operating at max efficiency. The Commanders, too. Zach Ertz went 4 for 68. Terry McLaurin, 6 for 53. He scored twice. Scary Terry is absolutely exploding right now. So, everything coming up like roses for the Commanders. And listen, I did a separate video on Caleb Williams. Both of these guys are absolutely going bonkers right now. The Chargers 23-16 over the Denver Broncos. There's going to be days like this for the Broncos. They just don't score. But they are getting better. Bo Nix is getting better. He threw 2 touchdowns in this game. Justin Herbert. You're still not using Justin Herbert other than Superflex leagues. With no Gus Edwards, who was placed on IR, J.K. Dobbins got 25 carries. He ran for 96 yards and a touchdown. And he added 2 catches in the passing game. Really, other than Dobbins, you're not starting anybody on the Chargers. For the Denver Broncos, just nothing but ugliness. Javonte Williams only 6 for 23. He lost a fumble. Audric Estime got 2 carries. Jaleel McLaughlin got 3. Javonte Williams is a running back 3-4 right now. Like, it's just bad. It's just completely bad right now. What are we up to here? Pittsburgh, 32-13. So Justin Fields got it done. They can't go away from him off a game like this, right? So Fields, 20-plus fantasy points. Again, third time in the last 4 games he's reached that threshold. He only threw for 145 yards, but he was a big runner in this one. 59 yards and 2 scores. Najee Harris, 106 yards and a score on the ground. Najee Harris has been really a single-digit guy. He is not used in the passing game, so he's really more for your running back 2 in PPR. George Pickens, barely a wide receiver 3. He's been completely neutered in this offense. Brock Bowers, 9 for 71. He's been the best tight end in fantasy this season. I'm sorry. He really, from as far as consistency week in and week out, he's been the guy. All right. Detroit. 47-9 over Dallas. Listen, there are no words for how miserable the Dallas Cowboys are playing right now. I think it's time for a change. Jerry Jones is clueless. This was an embarrassment of epic proportions. It was nothing but disgusting garbage that the Cowboys put out there on the field. Dak Prescott threw 2 picks, no touchdowns. When things go bad, they go really bad. They turn the ball over like crazy. Rico Dowdle, 25 yards on the ground. They barely used him. He caught 5 passes for 30 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 7 for 89, doing the best he could in a real shitty circumstance. Jake Ferguson had 3 catches for 11 yards. Like, it was bad. On the flip side, this Ben Johnson offense is a sight to see. Jared Goff is playing his balls off. He 2 more touchdown passes here. David Montgomery, 12 for 80, 2 more touchdowns. David Montgomery, anytime touchdown has hit 18 of the last 20 games. Bet it every time. If you bet that prop every time in those 20 games, you're doing pretty good. Jahmyr Gibbs went 12 for 63. All right? He caught 3 for 28. Sam Laporta, only 1 catch. And I'm going to be doing a separate video on Sam Laporta. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Right? They scored 47 points, and yet he scored a touchdown, but he only had 1 catch. Like, I get it. Jamison Williams, who went 3 for 76 in the score, is taking looks away for Sam Laporta. But my God. I mean, even Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 for 37 in the score, it really wasn't a huge game for him either. So I'm going to do a crisis point on Sam Laporta in a little bit. And then Atlanta, 38-20. This Atlanta team is coming. They're 4-2. They got skill position players like crazy. Kirk Cousins is playing well. And Drake London, guys, I gave you the ride or die of Drake London. He has scored 4 of the last 5 games, 6 for 74 here. Even Kyle Pitts went 3 for 70. Deontay Johnson, 6 for 78 in the score for Carolina. And I have to give credit. Chuba Hubbard continues to play well. He ran for 92 yards here. But this Falcons team is legit. They are absolutely legit. Okay? Just going to look at some any injury updates for today that came through. Devin Achane was in a red non-contact jersey today. Miami getting back into the successful surgery for Aiden Hutchinson, but he's obviously not going to make it back. Tua Tagovailoa expected to come back and play, which is ridiculous. Travis Etienne is week to week with a hamstring issue. So Tank Bigsby, even more leash. So, yeah, just a lot of stuff yesterday. Hopefully you did well. I'm off to a really good start in my leagues. I'm going to be 6-0 in one league, 5-1 in the other, and 4-2 in the Friends and Family League. So I'm really having a good start to the season. Knock on wood. And the 4-2 team is the team where I had Rashee Rice and Cooper Kupp. I lost Trey McBride for a game. Like, I've had a shitload of injuries on that team, but I've stayed the course, and my draft picks have really materialized this year. I felt like I had really good drafts this year. The Tyrone Tracy thing, I posted that video in the summer. I said he was going to be a factor. That's worked out. The quarterbacks I gave you have worked out. Drake London has worked out. So overall, I'm happy with how I've done and even Trey McBride, who I have in 2 or 3 leagues, is really starting to come around now. So, but anyway, so guys, hit that subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. There will be a Sam Laporta video later, Crisis Point, so stay tuned for that and hit that subscribe button.